Give examples of relations that are functions, not functions, one-to-one functions, functions but not one-to-one. Explain your examples in full sentences. Use different ways to represent relations. Okay, I'm not going to explain the full sentences because I'll be speaking it to you. But I will use different ways to represent the relations. So let's see. First of all, a relationship is basically anything. Well, I'm going to think about it in a graph form, but it could be equation form, it could be a table form, anything that you could put on here, right? And like there's a relationship somehow between x and y. Now, this is not a function though, because, well, an easy way to tell it's not a function is if it fails the vertical line test, which means it hits it more than once if you drew a straight vertical line going down. Because the definition of a function means at every x value, there is only one y value, right? But over here, you can see that there are multiple y values. So this is considered no longer a function. So that's not a function. Another example of a non-function that's popular would be a circle or an ellipse or something like that. Fails a vertical line test, you know, for a particular x value, there are multiple y values. All right, so that's not a function. All right, so I'm going to put NF for not function, NF for not function. One-to-one functions. Now, that means that a function, every x value has exactly one y value. Let me show you something that's not one-to-one first. So if we had a parabola, right, if we had a parabola, this is not one-to-one because for, let's say the x, remember the a standard parabola is just y equal x squared, right, without anything. That's just the normal stuff. Let's say at the x value of 2, you have a y value of 4. But at the x value of -2, you also have a y value of 4. So it's a function because every x value has only one y value attached to it, but it's not one-to-one because you have multiple inputs going to the same output. Now, another way you could tell if a function is not one-to-one is by simply just doing a horizontal line test. So that's the opposite of the vertical line test. And what this will indicate is if a function has an inverse or not in its full domain. Because if we restrict this, if we pretended that this piece didn't exist and we just looked at this piece, now that's a one-to-one function and it passes the horizontal line test, passes the vertical line test, so it is a function, and you could take the inverse of that. All right, so if you restrict the domain, you could take the inverse. In this case, you look at the whole thing, it fails the one-to-one test, which means that for the entire function, it doesn't have an inverse. You'll have to restrict the domain. I think that's pretty much it, but let's see if we could look at another thing. So what's a one-to-one function? Well, any linear equation. Right, anything, because it passes the horizontal line test, it passes the vertical line test. Vertical line is to verify it's a function, horizontal line is to verify that it is one-to-one. What's another one-to-one function? Something like this is also one-to-one. Right, so that's y equal x to the cube, x to the third. So that's one-to-one. Let's do one that's not one-to-one. Well, anything really, like anything that again fails the horizontal line test. So just this alone, that is not a one-to-one function. Okay.